If you guys enjoy what I do, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps the channel and it's free and easy to do. Before we get started with today's video, I have an announcement to make. After years of telling other people's stories, I finally released one of my own. My novel Eternal Reign is available now in both ebook and paperback format for those of you who are like me and prefer to collect physical media. You can grab a copy right now on Amazon through the link in the description of this video. And now back to our regularly scheduled program. At the Arcanist Guild, Thurbergine has gotten a request from the Sons of St. Coinoc for some assistance from an Arcanist, and they requested you by name since they know you faced Ifrit. The researcher is Emitra, and she's out in Gridania waiting for you. She's a member of the Sons of St. Coinoc, which is a Charlian group that hunts the lost knowledge of the Allegan Empire, and they found something out in Mordona that talks about ancient Allegan mages called summoners. Apparently they had the ability to draw on the essence of primals and create smaller versions of their own, ones that work for them. If that skill could be mastered, it might be the first step toward putting an end to the battles with the primals. But the problem is the only way to summon the tame primals is to capture the essence of the Beast Tribes version, which means someone has to beat them in a fight first. That makes the Warrior of Light one of the few people who could actually learn the skill, which is why Ashtola's younger sister called on you in the first place. The question of whether or not you actually wanted to become a summoner was never really in question, because who wouldn't want to summon primals and have them try to murder other people for a change? So you follow Emitra out to southern Thanalin to go through the first summoning ritual, called the Austerities of Flame, which you should already have an idea about what you're gonna face just by the name. Based on some of the records they found, the ancient summoners would perform their rituals in the areas that were more attuned to the specific element of the primal they wanted to summon, since those were the only places where shifting the ether was even possible. So the desert would be the perfect place to try to tame your old friend Ifrit. After taking the soul crystal that has the memories of long dead summoners in it, Emitra guides you on how to summon Ifrit because, while you fought versions of him before, calling him in any form is new, probably because it's a little stupid since even though you're summoning him, he's gonna try to kill you. While this avatar of Ifrit isn't nearly as powerful as some of the other versions you've faced, it does take both you and Emitra to overpower it and bend it to your will, allowing you to gain the power of the Ifrit Egi and resurrect the ancient art of the summoners. The term Egi translates into pure, or the essence of, which means what you've tamed is a pure form of Ifrit's raging fires, meaning you can summon it and make it scald your enemies like it has done to you time and time again. Since you succeeded in that first step, the Warrior of Light has officially earned the title of Summoner. But to truly resurrect the art, you'll need to master more Eggies, and the next one Emitra wants you to tame is Titan. There's a spot in the North Shroud that has a large amount of Earth Ether because of how the Calamity changed the layout of the land there, so it's the perfect place to summon Titan. Just like before, you managed to summon a Titan Eggie, and as you should have expected, it tries to beat you to death. It's a bit more powerful than the Ifrit one, but you and Emitra managed to overpower it, giving you control of another Eggie. However, the celebration of your victory is cut short when a very weirdly dressed man attacks you. He seems to know about summoning, and he's after a treasure that he thinks you have. And instead of explaining himself, he just decides to kill you and take the thing that he's not even sure you have. But things get a bit more interesting when he summons an Ifrit Egi of his own, revealing that the man is a summoner too. He's strong, but he's not able to beat the both of you, even when he unleashes the full power of his Ifrit. It can't break through your Titan shield, so he leaves instead of wasting any more time fighting you. Instead of trying to follow the crazy summoner, the Warrior of Light and Emitra head back to Gridania. Fighting a crazy summoner for a treasure that you supposedly have was not a part of Emitra's plan, but you getting control of the Titan Eggie made the trip worthwhile, and you got to see just how powerful its defensive abilities were. Which is going to be needed in the future because she's going to talk to the Sons of St. Coinoc to see if they can find out anything about the crazy summoner, because he's definitely going to attack you again. It doesn't take long for her to find out a little about the guy once she runs through the records of the people who have beaten Ifrit in the past. The list was longer than you might think, but after doing a little process of elimination, she thinks the man is named Tristan. He used to be registered as a member of the Mortal Flames, but there was no information on how he became a summoner, or why he might want to kill you. But whatever the reason, Emitra won't stand for someone using the summoner arts to cause chaos. What he's doing could put a bad mark on the names of summoners, and may even cause the art to get outlawed altogether just like necromancy, so she wants to hunt Tristan down ASAP. With a little digging, she found out that one of Tristan's old war buddies lives in Little Alamigo, so she wants you to go and talk to him so you can find out what you can about Tristan. Apparently Tristan's already gotten to his old comrade first, and told him to expect you so he has a group of people there ready to kill you. The way he talks, it doesn't seem like Tristan told him the truth about why you were there, so you're forced to deal with his hired hands and head back to Emitra to tell her the bad news. After you tell her what's happened, she's almost positive that Tristan told the man that you were tempered by Ifrit and hunting him because of that. That was a brilliant move, which means the man isn't as crazy as you thought. He's planning something, but there's still no telling what it is. But he does see you as a threat to those plans, otherwise he wouldn't have gone to those lengths to kill you. On a little bit of a better note, Emitra did decipher a little more of the Allegan text talking about different ways to enhance your summoning abilities. That's a better way to spend your time, because without knowing what Tristan is planning, chasing him will constantly leave you behind. But he thinks you have something that he wants, so he will eventually come after you again, which might be bad since he wants to kill you and all that. But you gotta work with what you have. Fortunately, the Sons of St. Chronicler have found a set of ancient summoner armor that was made during the time of the Allegan Empire for the sole purpose of enhancing the power of summoners. Rambros was the one supervising the Sun's expedition, so he'll be the one to decide if you can actually have the armor or not, so it's off to Mordona you go. Rambros is actually curious to see what the gear will do when it's worn by someone who's trained in the summoner arts, but his team has put a lot of work into finding the ancient armor, and they won't give it up without some type of payment for their efforts. There are a lot of Allegan constructs called Mirror Knights out and about in the area, making life kinda hard for the excavators. If you can clear some of those out, they should hand over their armor without any complaints. He's not wrong, the things are attacking the researchers, and when you get rid of them, they are more than willing to hand over the armor. The fact that they get to see summoner combat arts up close helps make the trade even more worthwhile. With the 4 pieces of the ancient armor that the Suns found in hand, you head back to Gridania where Emitra notices something. The Allegan armor is almost identical to what Tristan wore, so your item level should be even, meaning the winner of your next fight will be based on skill, which means you need to upgrade your arsenal with another primal, Garuda. Emitra can't even imagine an Eggy of Garuda considering how unpredictable the wind primal is, but if you can get that power it'll definitely be useful, once Emitra finds a good spot to summon the Lady of the Vortex, that is. That place turns out to be the floating city of Nim, which is obviously dominated by Wind Ether. You've had enough practice manifesting the Eggy primals by now, so summoning Garuda is pretty easy. Taming her, as you might have expected, is not. But you and Emitra take her down and the primal's powers are added to your own. Even she didn't expect you to be as good of a summoner as you are, but your skills make you a valuable research assistant, so she wants you to practice with your abilities while she searches for Tristan. When you see her next, she's frantic because some of the members of the Sons of St. Chronicler have been murdered by a black-robed attacker. That has to be Tristan, and since he's gotten bold enough to make an open attack on the Suns, you and Emitra head to Mordona to see if you can find out where he went after the attack. That way you can stop him before he does anything else. The Suns had been in the middle of celebrating because they'd found an Allegan soul crystal that belonged to a summoner. That was when Tristan appeared and told them to hand over the crystal. When they refused, he attacked. He took the stone and headed off toward the singing shards. The surviving researchers are upset and they want you to kill the man if you can for what he's done, something that I am more than willing to do. So the treasure Tristan wanted was your soul crystal, but since you've gotten stronger, it was easier to get the crystal from the Suns instead of you. Emitra had already figured that out, but she didn't want to say anything until she was positive. You know, pretty much the same stuff her sister does. There's still the question of why he wants the other Allegan relics, but you'll ask him once you catch him. So the two of you race off to the singing shards, hopefully to catch Tristan before he gets away. You arrive in time to see him giving the soul crystals to a black mask wearing Ascian, who says that he will draw the memories of the ancient summoners and the essence of an elder primer out of them for Tristan as payment for the artifacts. True to his word, the Ascian pours the power into Tristan. He gets the power he was after, but making a deal with the Ascians never ends well. That doesn't matter to him. He would do anything to get the power to destroy the beast tribe so they'll never be able to summon primals again. But first he'll take your soul crystal from you, and he'll use his new Eggy to do it. The Eggy of Belias. Despite the power he got from the Ascian, Tristan can't beat you and Emitra. Even though he's been defeated, he still refuses to give up on his mission. He wants the primal worshippers dead as payback for what happened to his brother. Tristan's brother had been tempered by Ifrit, and since there was no cure for tempering, he was forced to kill him. And because of that, he wants all primals gone, permanently, and he was willing to do anything to accomplish that goal. But unfortunately, he didn't have the power to do it, and his last attack destroys him entirely. Emitra finds it a bit ironic that you were all technically working toward the same goal, and if Tristan had simply talked to you instead of trying to murder you, there was a good chance you both would have joined him. But there's no point in worrying about that now, because the Ascian who Tristan was dealing with is still out there, and he will definitely be causing you problems in the future. When the Warrior of Light takes her next trip to Gridania, Emitra catches up to her because she has a few new things she wants to talk about. After your last encounter with the crazy summoner and the Ascian, Emitra had showed her research to her fellow scholars. They were excited, and of course they want to help her out with any further research. Plus they're willing to give her a few rare Allegan tomestones to help out. The information they have on them could be useful, and she wants you to go with her to get them from Rambros, which means it's time to take a trip to Mordona. Rambros is happy to see you, and since he sees you're with Emitra, he figures that you're there for the tomestones. Since they contain information about a few different summoner incantations, he figured Emitra would be the best person to decipher the hidden meanings in them. And of course she'll need you, since testing the new summoner techniques will require dealing with a few new primals like Leviathan, Ramu, and Shiva, which the Warrior of Light has already had a few run-ins with. Since you fought them, you should be infused with their essence, and as a summoner you should be able to call on their eggy forms, once you do the rituals at the right places, that is. The right place being somewhere strong in the ether of that particular primal's element. In this case that means lightning, water, and ice. Rambros is one of those people who know a lot about everything, and that includes places with strong ether, so he's the perfect person to point you in the right direction. According to him, the singing shards are strong in lightning ether, so that should work for Ramu. And since Emitra is extra eager to see more summons, and the place isn't that far away, you both head over to draw out a Ramu Eggy. The Warrior of Light performs the ritual the same as she did before, but this time it doesn't work for some reason. Emitra doesn't know why, but since it's not working, she can spend her time figuring it out in a more comfortable place, so the two of you head back to Gridania. Her notes don't have any answers either, so she dives into the tomestones to see if they hold the secret of the failed ritual. Even after studying them for a bit, she still doesn't have an answer to why the ritual failed. She did find some new spells that she doesn't think will be all that hard for the Warrior of Light to master in the meantime though. But before she can give you any information on that, a member of the Immortal Flames named Dancing Wolf shows up with a few questions for you. The Immortal Flames are hunting down Tristan, and since he's a summoner they figured the two people who were studying the art might know him. You do, of course, but considering the fact that the man died when you fought, Dancing Wolf will have a hard time tracking him down. Even after you tell him that the man is dead, he has a reason to believe that the man actually survived your fight, mainly because a caravan was recently attacked by a man with Tristan's exact description. The Immortal Flames can't let one of their former members run around ruining their reputation, so Dancing Wolf plans on hunting for him and dealing with him once and for all. And since if he is alive, he's a tool being used by the Ascians, Emitra volunteers the two of you to help with this investigation. It would be nice if people asked the Warrior of Light if she wanted to get involved before they signed her name on stuff, but since she never complains anyway, I guess it doesn't really matter. Dancing Wolf definitely won't turn down the help, so you all head out to Camp Drybone or where the attack happened so you can see if the people saw anything. Since people die every day in Thanalan, most people don't pay much attention to a merchant's body getting brought into the area, and even some of the survivors of the attack headed off and got back to business as usual as soon as they were patched up. But the few who did pay attention said the attacker was dressed in black robes and looked like one of Ifrit's tempered servants. Since there's not much help you'll get from the town, the three of you head toward Highbridge, since that's where the merchant who survived is supposed to be headed. You find the man while he's in the middle of being attacked by the Amoja. You're in time to save him, which he's happy about, and he's extra eager to tell you all he can about the last attacker so you can deal with him. Granted, he didn't see his face because of his robes, but he did see that the man had silver hair, which means he could be anyone from Thancred to Sephiroth, but he did have a flaming monster with him. To make sure the monster is actually what you think it is, the Warrior of Light summons her Ifrit Eggy, which confirms that it is what the man had been attacked with. That does make it hard to deny that the attacker was Tristan, since not many summoners even exist. So Dancing Wolf heads back to Ul'dah to let his superiors know, and he wants you and Emitra to come too because he has some things that he wants to talk to you about. He wanted to let you know why he personally seems so focused on hunting down Tristan. Turns out Tristan and his brother Kaeden had both served directly under Dancing Wolf. His unit had been sent after Ifrit, and they managed to beat the primal, but most of the unit was either burned to death or tempered. Tristan's brother was one of those who got tempered, and since the only way to deal with tempered people was to kill them at that time, Tristan volunteered to put his own brother down. The man obviously didn't take it well, and he left the Immortal Flames as a completely different man than the one he was when he came in. Even after that, Wolf hadn't expected the man to go on a murder spree. But since he was one of his soldiers, Wolf thinks it's his personal responsibility to put him down. Emitra is okay with helping him do that, and she once again volunteers you to help because in that regard she's exactly like her sister. News comes in about another attack out in central Thanalan by someone who looks exactly like Tristan, so you all head out there to talk to the survivors and get some leads. Because everyone in Thanalan cares more about getting stuff for themselves than stopping a violent criminal, the miner who has information you need puts the Warrior of Light and Dancing Wolf to work dealing with some Spriggans for him before he'll tell you what you want to know. Once you've handled his little side job, the miner is finally willing to talk about the attack. He was in the mine with his crew working like any regular day when a man in black robes appeared and started setting people on fire with his pet demon that looks exactly like your FFXIV. He's not 100% sure why the man attacked them, but the mine does have a decent amount of crystals there. And since the guy seemed interested in them, that might have been the reason he attacked. The miner had made the good decision to run away when the dying started, but when he had finally come back, all of their crystals were gone. There had been a crate full of crystals on the caravan that had been attacked too, so what the man wants is starting to seem pretty clear. Why he wants them is 100% up for debate. Since he knows what Tristan's after, Dancing Wolf thinks it might be a good idea to look back on some other incidents that they thought weren't related to see just what was stolen in those attacks. Finding out might just lead to something, so it's back to Ul'dah you all go. After looking at some old reports, Wolf sees that some of the attacks that they all thought were being caused by the Amon-Jah may have been Tristan. Honestly, since all of the victims were burned to death with no signs of spears or bows being used, they should have figured out that the Beastmen weren't behind it. But it's easier to point the blame at people you already hate than it is to do real police work. With the amount of crystals that he's stolen, it's pretty obvious, to Mitra at least, that this guy's about to summon a primal, which with him being a summoner unleashing a full-powered primal on the world definitely won't help better the group's reputation. The summoners in the Allagan Empire were looked at as heroes because they fought primals, but people started to hate them when they started using their powers for selfish reasons. They didn't all do it, but enough did to where the regular people began to believe that anyone who tried to become a summoner would eventually go crazy. That belief led to the mage hunts, and by the end of the Third Astral Era, the summoners were pretty much extinct. Mitra said all that to say that Tristan could revive that fear of summoners and end up making the mage hunts pop back up again, which means you need to catch him, so Wolf doubles the amount of people who will be guarding the caravans that are shipping crystals to give you all a better chance of catching the man before he does something really bad. Tristan's obviously not an idiot, because when the Immortal Flames put more soldiers out hunting for him, he stops attacking the caravans. So Dancing Wolf decides it's time to launch an attack of his own using a barely guarded shipment of crystals as bait. He wants you to be a part of the attack since your growing summoner powers will be useful in the fight that will definitely happen when Tristan finally gets caught. So you all head out to Camp Bluefog to get your ambush underway. Wolf's caravan conveniently breaks a tire, which does in fact draw out your black-robed attacker who is using an FFXIV. He shows up and immediately attacks the wagon driver. The Warrior of Light deals with the guy, but he wasn't alone because Mitra says a similar man had appeared out of thin air and attacked her too. Someone also popped out of nowhere in front of Dancing Wolf, but the man was so weak that Wolf is positive that he wasn't the one in charge of anything. Things get more weird when he sees the face of the man you took down. It's Tristan's brother, who Wolf knows has been very dead for a long time. That should be impossible, but the man behind all of this shows up and it turns out to be the same Ascian that taught Tristan summoning magic, which makes him having a dead guy working for him make a lot more sense. He had planned on giving Tristan all of the knowledge of the Allagan summoners so he could go after the primals, but the man was too weak to get the job done. But he figures that the Warrior of Light will make a better tool anyway. The more you kill primals, the more desperate the beast tribes get to summon them back stronger than they were before. And as long as the Ascian gets them more crystals, they'll be able to summon them over and over again, disrupting the planet's ether enough to cause a calamity, all to help lead to their goal of resurrecting Zodiark. After he tells you his plan, because villains just can't help themselves for some reason, he leaves and you all head back to Ul'dah to treat the soldier who got hurt in the attack. The entire mission has changed now since you're no longer hunting a rogue summoner but an almost immortal Ascian. Hard to kill or not, Dancing Wolf plans on finishing the thing off for disrespecting the corpse of one of his fallen soldiers. That means he'll definitely need your help now. And you'll need more power, so Mitra goes back to Gridania to see if she can get any more information out of the tombstones. Since there hasn't really been any more signs of the Ascian, Dancing Wolf uses the time to have a funeral for Cognate. He doesn't really know how to go about tracking down the Ascian, so he's stuck, but Mitra does find a few things to share with you, so you go back to Gridania to talk. While she was working on finding a way to kill the Ascian, she figured out why you couldn't summon the Ramu Egi. When you summon something, you use your body's ether to give it life and shape. The thing is, everyone has a limit, and if it takes more ether than your maximum to summon something, then the spell just won't work. In other words, the Warrior of Light wasn't strong enough to summon Ramu with just her own power. The Allagan summoners had came up with a way to bypass that little roadblock though. Instead of summoning the physical Eggy, the strongest summoners would use their own bodies as vessels for the primal's power, using a technique known as trance. If the Warrior of Light learns it and manages to infuse herself with the power of a strong enough primal, Emitra thinks that it could let her fight the Ascian on equal footing, and she's already picked out the primal for you, Bahamut. She is definitely Ishtola's sister because instead of trying the technique on a regular primal like Good King Mogomog or something, she just jumped straight to the top of the list. Since Bahamut exploded during the calamity, his essence splattered over most of the people in Eorzea. And that was a sentence that I probably should have rewritten because it did not give a pleasant visual, but I saw it in my head and now you all will too, so you're welcome. Since everyone's been exposed to Bahamut's essence, the main requirement for the summoning has already been taken care of. All that's left is to perform the ritual at a place soaked in Bahamut's energy. That should let you enter the Dreadworm trance, which is a pretty cool name for a transformation. As for the perfect spot to do the ritual, Emitra thinks Dancing Wolf would know of one, so the two of you head back to Ul'dah to ask him. Technically, everyone knows that the best place for this is the Cardinal Flats. What she needs Wolf for is access. The place is jointly ran by the Eorzean Alliance, and getting access to it takes a lot of paperwork. At best, he can get you to the Immortal Flames airship landing. From there, you'll have to sneak the rest of the way in at night. It's a dangerous thing to do, which means you're obviously gonna do it. Since Wolf wants revenge on the Ascian, he's coming with you, so together you all head there and start the ritual. Absolutely nothing happens. The Ascian, who was watching you, because of course he was, thinks it's funny that you thought you could channel the power of Bahamut. If it had worked, he's pretty sure you would have just exploded, which would have been funny to watch. But since you didn't accidentally self-destruct, he decides to kill you before you get the chance to try the ritual again, which kind of proves that you not only could gain Bahamut's power without going boom, but if you did, you likely would be a threat to him. He tries his hardest to stop you, summoning 3 primal Eggies at once for you to deal with, but drawing Bahamut's power from around the area lets you deal with his pets. The Ascian hadn't expected you to be able to pull off the summoning in the middle of a battle, so he is kind of impressed, and instead of continuing the fight, he leaves, since not even immortals want to risk their lives all willy-nilly. Emitra can't believe that you all fought an Ascian and didn't die, but with you swinging the power of Bahamut to some extent, it does make a little bit of sense. It was a good victory, but since none of you are actually where you're supposed to be, celebrating will have to wait a bit. Once you all get back to Ul'dah and realize that no one knows about your night of trespassing, only then can any of you really feel good about what happened. Wolf wishes the Ascian hadn't ran away, but Emitra lets him know that even if you had beaten him there, he wouldn't have stayed dead. It takes work to permanently bring down an Ascian, and she thinks she's figured out a way to do it. The fact that the Ascian ran away when you were out at Cardinal made her think, because if he's immortal, why would he run? From what she knows, the Ascians don't have a physical form of their own. They just bounce from body to body. It's the reason why sometimes only people with the Echo can actually see them. For the most part, regular people can't see Ascians when they aren't in a body. But losing their host body doesn't kill the Ascian, or rather it doesn't kill the stronger ones. Emitra thinks the Black Masked Ascians may not be as good at the whole body jumping thing as the red ones. When you fought in Cardinal, the only bodies around were yours, Emitra's, and Dancing Wolf's. And since you were all alive, the Ascian you were fighting may not have been able to take your bodies if he lost his. And if for some reason he can't get back to the space between worlds where Ascians tend to hide, or into a new host body, he may have died if you had destroyed the body he was in. That would explain why he used Kahadan's corpse as a vessel instead of someone living like we saw La Habrea do. That means that if you can lure him to a place with no other host, you can kill the Ascian, permanently. Dancing Wolf wants to get things set up for this final attack immediately, but Emitra thinks you still need something else that can make sure you can all take the Ascian down before he can run away. The tombstone said it was possible to let out all of the power of trance in a single blast, but it didn't say how to do it. She thinks it can only be learned from a forbidden book that's stored in the Great Google Library. The place is pretty far away, so she thinks it'll be best if you all head there immediately. When you get to the library, you don't get a chance to go in before the Ascian shows up to deal with you for good. And this time he brought friends who finally tell you why he's been so obsessed with killing you. His group works directly for La Habrea, and they're not happy about what you did to him. If you could beat their leader, I don't know what made them think that you couldn't beat them, but I'm guessing they're not using too much logic at the moment. After you give them a good old-fashioned beating, the Ascian realizes that he might have bitten off more than he could chew. But it's too late to run away, so he gets done in by the technique that Emitra claimed you needed a book from the library to learn. Turns out she was full of crap. No book even existed. You just needed to fight a little bit and you would eventually figure out the technique on your own. The whole lie was just in case the Ascian was listening in. Even if he wasn't, he would have figured out that you were heading off to hunt down some special bit of power and he couldn't let you do that. so he would have to attack you in that very remote, out-of-the-way, isolated, corpse-free place. That means the mission is over. The Ascian is dead for good as far as you know, and Dancing Wolf can finally close the book on the Tristan story while leaving Amitra free to get back to her research, which will eventually lead her to finding something else that needs your attention. The next time the Warrior of Light chats with Amitra and Gridania, she has some very interesting news to tell you about. A book filled with ancient summoner secrets has been found in some Allegan ruins, and she's about to head to Mordona to get it from Rambros. Since summoning techniques are kind of important to you, she figured you want to tag along. From what Rambros has learned from the thing, it is some type of instruction manual for summoning magic, but there wasn't much he could learn since he couldn't translate the language. That's more of Amitra's area of expertise anyway, and she immediately gets started on trying to figure out the book's secrets. That normally boring process gets a little strange when the book wakes up and starts talking. He calls himself Principia, and he's a familiar who knows a lot about summoning, and he's been programmed with the job of teaching up-and-coming summoners the proper techniques. Normally it's asleep, but the Warrior of Light's soul crystal turned the thing on. Summoning arts were created for the sole purpose of dealing with primals, but once all of the primals have been dealt with, it would be impossible to create new Eggi, which would cause the summoners to die out. To keep that from happening, a master summoner made Principia, stored some of the most powerful spells and incantations into him, and programmed him to teach those arts to summoners to keep the craft from dying out. The book is supposed to teach the Warrior of Light these lost arts, but there are some seals on the knowledge that can only be removed if the student can pass 3 tests. Since this is a good opportunity to get more power, the Warrior of Light agrees to take the tests. The first one is simple. Principia will summon a monster and you have to fight it. It summons a very generic creature that doesn't take all that much effort to put down, but the display does impress the book since you've gotten as strong as you have without an actual teacher. With the right training, Principia thinks that the Warrior of Light has the potential to become as good as some of the summoners of the past. He actually has a lot of knowledge of the past too, which he's willing to share with you. The history lesson seems more interesting to Amitra than the Warrior of Light, and the first thing she wants to know is exactly what era was the book made in, because compared to some of the other Allegan relics you've all found, Principia seems kind of primitive. Oddly enough, the book was made by a master summoner named Sari, who was most likely the last summoner to live during the Allegan Empire. That would mean, despite Principia being made with some outdated tech, it was created when Allegan machines were at their most advanced. There's a reason why none of that advanced technology was used on him though. The Allegans had rose to greatness through their mastery of magic, not technology. The early summoners used regular grimoires for combat, but over time there was a merger between the magical side and the science side, and that was where aetherochemical technology came from. It caused the classic spell books to get replaced by weapons that let people throw around much deadlier magic at a faster pace, but their ease of use didn't help train new students. It also took complicated and very expensive machinery to do something as simple as go back and reread an old spell. So while the new stuff was more powerful, it wasn't better in all areas, which is why Sari made Principia without all of that stuff. With that not so brief history lesson out of the way, the 3 of you head back to Gridania so you can get ready for test number 2. Captain Wolf is there because he once again needs Amitra's help with something. Since she's more interested in finding all of Principia's secrets, she's not exactly willing to give him all that much attention. But it turns out that what he wants and the book's second test go hand in hand. The second test is going to need a few other summoners to attack the Warrior of Light, and after all of the things you've been doing with the summoning magic, the Immortal Flame started training summoners of their own. Dancing Wolf had personally picked people who had survived encounters with Ifrit, and gave them some of the soul crystals you all got from the Ascians. He had been trying to get Amitra to get you to help train them a bit, and he's willing to let them help with your test if you'll teach them a thing or two about summoning. Principia is fine with the idea, and there's nothing blocking him from sharing the knowledge with the rookies either, so it's a win-win for everyone. Wolf goes to gather his summoners out in Camp Bluefog, and you all head out there so you can beat up a few rookies while calling it teaching. To make the test actually mean something, Principia is going to modify Dancing Wolf's summoner's powers before the fight starts, that way he can analyze the ether you use. The 3 rookies are Crispin, Denise, and Jajasamu, who are very eager for any training they can get from the Warrior of Light, which means they're all too ready to match their skills against yours. Once you finish spanking the rookies, Principia is pleased with your skills and claims that you completed task number 2. So the Warrior of Light and Amitra head back to Gridania to get ready for whatever the book is planning next. Before you dive right back into hitting things, Principia has another history lesson for you about how summoners both rose to power and lost favor. Amitra already knows some of that, The summoners started off as heroes because of how they dealt with primals, but some of them started using their powers for personal gain, and that started to make some people jealous because for some reason people get mad when someone profits off of a skill they have. Principia's master Sari kept fighting primals even after people started treating the summoners like outcasts, and with the help of some of his students he even managed to bring down Belias, a particularly powerful primal. Sari thought summoning was going to fade from existence, so he started looking for ways to keep the knowledge alive for future generations. He started trying to find ways to do summoning without grimoires, and that led to him modifying the summon Eggy with tech. He didn't think that would work all that well when it came to passing down knowledge, so he made Principia. He was a very talented man, which makes it odd that Amitra's never seen his name in any history books. Since summoners weren't exactly liked, they probably excluded Sari from history on purpose. Unfortunately, Principia ended up locked in a storeroom for a long time, so he doesn't even know what happened to his master. What he does know is that you're ready for your final test, but this time he can't tell you what this test actually is about. All he can say is the last test is meant to simulate a real primal threat, and he wants you to get the other summoners to help you out again. Captain Wolf is more than happy to send his summoners off to get a bit more first-hand experience with the Warrior of Light, and to help expedite the process, he gets you all access to Seal Rock, so you can have a spot to carry out your practice battle without any interruptions. Since there's no point in waiting, you head off to Ul'dah so you can get to the training ground. Dancing Wolf and his summoners have already went on ahead of you, but when they got there something strange happened. Something attacked them, and it's hurt all of the summoners pretty bad. Dancing Wolf is the only man left standing, and it was pure luck that Jajasamu managed to call in Mitra for help. The Warrior of Light and Mitra and Principia head to the rock as quickly as they can, and when you all get there you see that your friends are being attacked by a lot of Eggies. Way more than any one summoner should be able to conjure up. They're all different sized versions of Sephiroth, one of the members of the Warring Triad, which would explain why the rookie summoners were beaten so easily. Dancing Wolf is fighting the summoner behind all of this, and when the Warrior of Light gets there, the strange summoner calls you the potential and decides to test your power. When you bring down all of the summoners Eggy, he calls some very alive Allergan experiments to attack you. By the time the fight is over, Amitra and Principia have finished healing the wounded summoners, and they finally make it to the battlefield. Principia recognizes the summoner you fought as his master Sari, who should be very dead. The book wants to know how his old master is still alive, but instead of answering his questions, he casts a spell on the book then disappears in a very unusual way for a human. Everyone has a lot of questions, but it'll be better to talk when you're someplace safe, so you pack everything up and head back to Ul'dah. Once you're back safe in the city, Dancing Wolf thanks you for saving all of their lives, since none of them would have survived without you showing up. Keeping your allies alive is great, but what you really need to do is find out how an ancient Allergan summoner came back to life and attacked you. The best place to look for that information is in Principia, so you and Amitra head back to Gridania to talk to the book. Principia is positive that you did fight his old master. The man definitely died, but cloning people wasn't exactly new to the Allergan, so he could have been a clone. Seal Rock was made by the Allergan Empire, so having an ancient Allergan clone pop up there isn't as odd as it might sound. The spell Sari put on the book locked the information that he was supposed to share with you, and the only person who can unlock it is Sari, even though you did pass the third test by rushing in to save your allies during the attack. That fight wasn't the test that the book had planned, but it worked out in the end. Sari wanted his knowledge to be passed down to summoners who had good character, which is why this more violent Sari seems off. Regardless, you have to find him if you want to unlock the hidden knowledge inside of the book. Principia is more than willing to help, if for no other reason than to stop the imposter from tainting his master's legacy. Amitra figures that trying to find out about Sari's past is the best way to track him down. And the best person to talk to about all things Allergan is Rambros, so you all take a quick trip to Mordona to see if he can help out. Rambros is always willing to help, but he knows someone who collects more ancient relics than even his group does, so if anyone has some records on Sari, it would be her. The problem is that person is Rowena, which means getting her to share that information might cost you a kidney. Rambros and his people have started working closely with her, so as long as he guarantees that her stuff will be returned, she might let you borrow the tombstones without making you mortgage your house. The always greedy woman is actually willing to help, and her scribes have already pulled all of the info from the tombstones, so she saves you the trouble of having to get the machines that can read the things, and instead hands you a lot of books that you have to read through to find what you need. After a lot of reading that was probably quite boring, Amitra finds something saying that the Allergan military had confiscated all of Sari's research. This happened toward the end of his life, so it would have been after he made Principia, after having his work stolen and seeing his students killed. That may have had something to do with why he changed to the more violent man that you fought. Some of the other records show that when the military found Sorry, he had already been killed by someone else. After that, they took over his experiments and started trying to move forward with what he had been working on. They started testing things on a man-made island, which just so happens to be Seal Rock, so it's likely that the summoner showing up on that island activated some of those experiments, which led to their near deaths. The Allegans had stopped testing Sorry's work when something had gone wrong, and they took all of their test results to a place that has been a constant pain for the Warrior of Light, the Ithero-Chemical Research Facility out in XIV, which is likely the place that the clone of Sorry fled to, which means you're going to be taking another trip there, so you all head back to Gridania to get ready for it. Sorry is clearly waiting for you, which means this is likely a trap. XIV isn't exactly a safe place in general, so Dancing Wolf and his summoners decide to tag along with you as backup. When you get there, Sorry finds you, and he lets you know that he's not a clone at all. He will tell you what he is if you can beat him. If not, it won't matter since you'll be dead. He tells you where to meet him before he disappears again, and he vanishes just like a summoned creature. With the machines that Sorry made, it's actually possible to reconstruct a person's ether and make an exact replica of them, meaning the summoner that you're dealing with isn't Sorry but one of his machines. If you don't destroy it, then it'll just keep summoning Sorry over and over again. Fortunately, the summoner can't move too far away from what it summons, so the machine is going to be close to where Sorry went. Emitra borrowed her sister's etherometer, so if the machine is invisible, she'll be able to see it. You're all as prepared as you can be, so you head inside of the building to do battle with Sorry and whatever machine is controlling him. Sorry reappears, and since you figured out what he is, he tells you his purpose. He's a part of a defense mechanism that can grow and evolve to deal with bigger and bigger threats. If he ever came across something with more power than Sorry, his mission is to kill it, absorb its ether, and turn it into the new Guardian. In other words, the machine wants to kill the Warrior of Light and turn her into his new Eggy. That doesn't sound healthy for the Warrior of Light, so it's a good thing that Emitra found the actual summoner, which turns out to be a very large Allegan node. Just because you found it doesn't mean beating it will be easy, since the thing summons 2 more versions of Sorry to make sure that you don't make it out of there alive. The machine clearly didn't know who you were, because despite trying very hard to unalive you, it fails and gets destroyed. With the machine broken, the seal on Principia fades, letting it share all of its techniques with you while Captain Wolf finishes searching the area. While he was searching, he found a lot of soul crystals that belonged to all of Sorry's murdered students. There was also a tombstone that had the unaltered story of what happened to the man. After his students were killed, he started to doubt that mortals could be trusted with the fate of the world, so he started working on new ways to protect the world from primals. That led to him creating the machine that tried to kill you. Combining its computing power with a lot of soul crystals, it was able to summon a lot of creatures at the same time. When Sorry finished building it, he programmed it to act as the world's guardian, then he self-deleted so it could absorb him and all of his power. That's what led us here. Leaving the soul crystals laying around isn't the best idea, so Emitra puts them inside of Principia for safekeeping, and the book goes back to sleep. The spells that are put on it will let it wake up to give the soul crystals to worthy summoner candidates, but for now, its mission is complete. A lot has happened since the last time the Warrior of Light saw Emitra, and she was just about to contact the Scions to check on her sister when you showed up. Since you're there, it means she doesn't have to wait around to hear news, so you tell her about your trip to the First. Telling her about your not-so-little adventure makes her realize that her life really isn't all that complicated when compared to yours, but she is happy to hear that Ishtola is doing fine. Jaja Samu had actually sent a message for you, which is the other reason that Emitra had been planning on getting in touch with the Scions. The summoner is in Gridania on leave, and he wanted Emitra to send you to talk to him the next time you showed up. It's not a life or death matter or anything like that, but since you are a type of mentor to the summoner, you head over to talk to him. He wanted some advice about summoners being in the heart of battle. He's heard about your resistance to tempering, and because of that, you get sent to combat every time a primal gets summoned. He figures that would get annoying, but the Warrior of Light doesn't see it that way. She's always eager to help people, so it never really mattered. That's noble and all, but it's not why Jaja Samu fights. He does it for one reason and one reason only, and that's the money, which makes sense. If you're good at something, why do it for free? That's how most of the soldiers he knows thinks. But the 2 people who joined them on their last mission weren't like that. Arnvald and Fordola was sent to help the Immortal Flames fight Ifrit just because they have the same resistance to tempering that you do. Jaja didn't realize just how young they were at first, but they were the ones at the front of the battle while him and the other summoners stayed back in relative safety, sending their Eggy in to do all of the fighting. He didn't really like the fact that they were sending in people so young to take all of the risks just because of their gift, and he wants you to talk to them to see how they felt about the situation. Arnvald's out in Rhaegar's reach, and he'll know where they have Fordola locked up, so you head off to meet him. Jaja Samu being worried about him and Fordola is news to Arnvald, since he was pretty sure that the man was annoyed with them for being there. But since the Lalafell was worried about them, he's fine with going to see how Fordola felt about their mission. She's a prisoner since her joining up with the Garleans and killing Alamegans is kinda frowned upon, so it's not like she has any real choice when it comes to talking to you, although I'm pretty sure that if she could, she would ignore you. Arnvald is just as much of a goody two-shoes as the Warrior of Light, and he fights so he can help people, and it feels pretty good to be needed. Wanting to be useful comes from the fact that his own mother didn't want him around, and having people die to save him when the Waking Sands got raided made him want to prove that his life had been worth saving in the first place. Fordola's reason for fighting is a lot more simple since she doesn't have a choice. It was either fight or be executed for her crimes. She knows she's expendable, and regardless of her reasons for joining the Garleans, she's pretty sure no one would care if she died. Arnvald makes it pretty clear that he would because he obviously likes her in more than a friendship sort of way, even though he won't admit it. Since you're there bothering her, Fordola wants to know what you've been fighting lately since that's all you do. So the Warrior of Light tells her about her mission to the First. Fordola thinks you traveling to another world and saving that one too is a load of crap that you probably made up. But Arnvald believes you, and he hopes that one day he can at least carry half the burden that you do on his back, which considering what happens to him is a very poor choice of words. Fordola gets tired of talking to the two of you pretty fast, so you leave so she can get back to her push-ups and you head back to Gridania to talk to Jaja Samu. He's happy to hear that neither of them truly regret their position, and he plans on doing what he can to better back them up when they fight together again. And maybe eventually he'll get the title of Eorzea's second best summoner, since it's pretty clear that the top spot is yours. This concludes the story of the Summoner. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it, comment, share it, and subscribe. Grab a copy of my novel on your way out, and I'll see you all next time.